To make this video as simple as possible, I'm going to first show you what you need. And the first thing I have here is some super glue. And then I have the spray here that I can spray on the super glue that makes it adhere faster. And then I have some installation tubes. They're called shrink tubes. And I have some wire here. I have two types of wire. I have this thinner wire for some of my light fixtures, and then I have this other wire that's a little bit more heavy duty for other light fixtures. And I'll explain to you why I choose the different types. And this one is Evan Designs. That's where I get a lot of my products. And then I have board here that I cut on, and this is actually a sample board from our flooring. Instead of bringing a cutting board out, because cutting boards are so much bigger, I wanted a smaller board so it didn't take so much space. And then I have something that I use because I do tinning, it's called, and you have to have this core when you do the tinning, and you can buy this probably like at a Menards or on Amazon, of course. And then just some matches, and then a little pair of scissors, a box cutter, or you can use an X-Acto knife if you would rather. And then this looks kind of crude, but it's a stand my husband made with a sponge on it that I put water on. And for doing the tinning, I have this soldering iron. And this is if I'm going to add light to a fixture that isn't already wired with a light. And now I'm going to show an example of a light fixture that already has a wire in here and that has a light already in the fixture, which are most lights when you order them for your miniatures. This is a 112 size, and I added this wire to this because this is a 3 amp light. So this wire is for 3 amps. Like I said, the other one is for a brighter light, so a 5 amp. So if you put this on the 5 amp, it's not going to work. And then as you can see, there's the insulation I put on there. I'm not going to show you step by step how to do this one because the one I'm going to show you is going to be the exact same steps. But I just wanted to explain to you why some can have this wire versus the other and show you what it looks like when it's done with the insulation here. And this is the shrink tube that I showed you before. And then at the end of it, I have 2 exposed wires. So these are what I'm going to wire into the dollhouse. And every time I'm done with a fixture, I always want to test it. So I have this to test it. And there's a black and a red. And when they're the white wires, it doesn't matter if you do red or black. I mean, you don't know which one it would be because they're both the same. Where the other wire I showed you does have a red and a black, but this one doesn't, so I can choose either or. So I'm just going to put this one onto the black because I just chose this one. And what I do is I just wrap it around just for testing it. And so this is your supply source for getting the electricity into your fixtures, and they will be to be hooked up into the dollhouse. But I did buy an extra one just for testing them before I put them into the dollhouse. And I did get these on Evan Designs. And this one I will plug it back into the wall. And I have this now with the all hooked up here, and there's a little button here that I just click to see if the light fixture works, which it does. And it gives a very nice bright light. One more thing that's good to have is a good lamp. One that goes on a desktop that you can move like this, because it's really hard to see the little wire. So now I have the lamp on so you can tell it's a lot brighter here. And this one didn't have a light in it, so I'm creating my own light. So what I do is I get this, which I had purchased on Evans Design, and there's different types, and they're called chips, a nano, or a pico. And I like the chip. It has a warm white light, and it's a 512 volts, like I said. So that's why I need the more heavy duty wire to attach to this. So then what I did was I put the wire through this little hole that was at the top, so that worked out really nice. So I just slid that through here, and the light is right here. And if I want, I could, put some super glue on here to glue it, and that way it would stay. But this light is working out fine because I pulled it through here, so it's staying right here where I'd want it. That way it will show really nicely all around the actual light fixture. I made it on this one, and I did glue it in here, and then I just wrapped it around the post. And so that one worked out really nice, and it has a really pretty glow to it. And here's the wire again, and this one you have to, you have to pull it apart, twist it apart, I should say. You twist it apart, so there's a red and a black, and it's insulated. So what I have to do is strip back the insulation. And you want to take I always take about this much off because it just makes it easier. And that's when I take my box cutter to get the insulation off. And I go on one side, and then I go flip it over to the other side. And you just have to peel it back, and I use my fingernail, and I just kind of peel it back like that. And it's kind of tough, so then it looks like this. And then what I want to do is cut the tubing, that shrink tube, but I want to make sure it's enough so it covers well. Make sure by measuring it a little bit like this so I know it's enough. One thing do not forget to do is put it on here, because I many times have forgotten, and that's always a bummer because then you have to tear it apart again. And then black on black and red on red, but make sure they're not touching. So I'm just going to twist it. It's not plugged in yet, so even if they're touching now, it would be fine, but it's best to just make sure. Now the one wire is going to be thinner than the other, so what I do is I take the thinner part, which is the wire that is attached to the light, and wrap that around the thicker wire, because then it does not break as easily. So now that is done, and now I'm going to solder these together, or tin them, and this is the tinning material. And I'm just going to put that like this. And then I take the soldering tool, kind of wipe it on the sponge, make sure there's nothing on it. That's what the sponge is for. And then I hold that over the wire that I've twisted together and kind of just bring it in to that. You can see it smoking a little, and just bring it out. Now this one created a little ball on the top. It takes practice to do this, so I'm going to just smooth it out best I can. And then it doesn't have to look perfect, but as long as the tube can go over it. And the reason you do this, it gives it extra protection That way these wires won't come apart and hopefully last for a very long time, if not always. And then just gives it extra strength. So now that's done, and I'm going to wipe the tool off with the sponge. And then I take the insulation and I put it over what I just did. And it does set up real fast. And then I'm going to take a match to shrink it on there. Make sure the whole entire wire is covered and no exposure at all. And you can take a little heat gun if you want to purchase one of those, or do it with a match. Of course, this is maybe a little bit more risky, or you have to make sure you don't burn yourself. But then you have to make sure you don't burn yourself with a heat gun either. Just do it real fast like this. And then when that is done, I will just kind of try to pull it so to make sure it's in there. And it is, it's very well set. And make sure you don't have any children around when you're doing this, because this is dangerous, the soldering. And I make sure my kitty is out of the room and I shut the door. So then the next thing I do is I want to make sure I have enough of this wire. So what you can do is measure it from where you're going to have it in the dollhouse. I'm going to have it above, I think I'll have above this dining room table, and it's on the bottom floor, so I won't need a lot of wire for that to bring it down to where I need it to plug it in under the dollhouse. So what I'm going to do is just cut as much as I'll need. And then, again, I'm just going to take this apart like I did before. And I do want to test it to make sure everything's working. And I want to have quite a bit out because this part will be going underneath the dollhouse. I'll make sure the wire is pretty nice size for wrapping around the unit I need to when I go upstairs to hook this up. So again, I'm going to test it with this, and I'm going to click it, bring it up so you can see, and it shows pretty nice. I think, so I'll put it like this when I put it in the dollhouse because the back part doesn't show quite as much. There, now you can see it. I really like this light fixture a lot. It's all metal and it's really attractive. It's a vintage piece. I found it on Etsy. And there it is underneath. And then I'll show you a couple more I've done. And here's another one I did. And this one's really neat because it's a lamp. And it's kind of hard to see because it's a little bit light in here, but it's underneath here. And I actually glued this one. And then here's the other one. And then when you want them in your dollhouse, what you need to do is you have to get one of these. It's called a terminal block, 6 circuit. And this one you can get at Circuit City, or you can get it even at Menards, hardware stores. They sell them a lot of places. But you have to screw it underneath your dollhouse, upside down like this, of course. at the base underneath. And then what you do is you take a Phillips screwdriver and you loosen a couple of these, and you put the reds on one side and the blacks on the other side. So then when you do that, this has to be hooked up to the power source. And to be honest with you, my husband did all this for me. So these are involved, and this goes into the dollhouse on the side, and then two of the red and blacks are onto this, and then that would hook up onto these. I know it sounds complicated, and in a sense it kind of is, but this is what you would use, and that way when you switch this on, all your lights would come on. And I will show you what I mean, and I'll go upstairs and show you, but it's easier to show you this way before it's all hooked up. Otherwise you're just going to see a bunch of wires.